What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStop MTG. Glad to have you here. Recently, we got some exciting news about Transformers making its way to the Magic the Gathering universe. I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of Universes Beyond because it does feel like they're mixing a lot of different universes together, but I do really like the fact that they have Transformers on this because I do have a lot of fond memories watching Transformers as a kid and playing with the toys as well. So Wizards definitely sold me on buying this product right here because I love Transformers so much. So I do plan to make 3 to 4 deck techs. First one I'm going to be going over is Megatron Tyrant, because I would have to say Megatron is probably one of my favorite characters. I would have to say my favorite character is Shockwave, but unfortunately they did not make him, so we'll have to make do with Megatron. So he does have a lot of things going for him. I'm going to read his front side first, then his back side. So Megatron's front side reads, Megatron Tyrant, it has 3 and Mardu colors to cast it, and it's a legendary artifact creature robot, which is a cool typing because we haven't really seen that besides the new Infinity set. So his first ability reads, More Than Meets the Eye. You can cast this card converted for a colorless and Mardu colors. So if you do want to get Megatron out earlier, you can cast it for More Than Meets the Eye cost, which will flip it on the back side. So after that, your opponents can't cast spells during your combat, and at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, add colorless mana for each 1 life your opponents had lost this turn. And so when he's converted to his backside, he does have living metal. As long as it's your turn, this vehicle is also a creature, so it's perfect because as it's a vehicle, it could just be a creature anyway, so it doesn't matter. And it also evades board wipes too, because when it's opponent's turns and they try to board wipe, you don't have to worry about Megatron dying because it's a vehicle, it's not going to be a creature because it's not your turn. So his tank version reads, whenever Megatron attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, Megatron deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value to target creature. If excess damage would be dealt to that creature this way, instead that damage is dealt to that creature's controller and you convert Megatron. So first of all, I do want to mention that there's a really neat interaction with this combat trick. So before blockers are even declared, you get to deal that damage, and if you do excess damage, you can convert Megatron into his other side, which is a 7/5, which is a better than a 4/5 right there. So say for example, you sacrificed a Blightsteel Colossus and dealt that excess damage of 11 damage. So if you're dealing that excess damage, that'll be redirected to your opponent. And so now that your Megatron is converted back to his robot form, and if your opponent does not have a creature to block with, you could possibly get 18 floating colorless mana, and I could think of a lot of crazy things to do with that. But first, I do want to talk about some Decepticons you'd want to add to the deck for flavor-wise. We do have the power-hungry Starscream, which is really great in this deck because whenever you draw a card, if you're the Monarch, your target opponent loses 2 life. And his backside does read Flying Menace and Haste and Living Metal as well. Whenever Starscream deals combat damage to a player, if there is no Monarch, that player becomes the Monarch. Whenever you become the Monarch, converts Starscream. So as far as flavor-wise, I think Starscream right here is very fitting for his title of Power Hungry and Leader Seeker, because in the cartoons he's always trying to overthrow Megatron, so him trying to seek to be the Monarch is a perfect fit for him. Plus, the more cards we draw before our post-combat phase, the more colorless mana we do get, so I see that as an absolute win right there. Speaking of our opponents losing life, we do have Blitzwing Cruel Tormentor. He reads More Than Meets the Eye, and at the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to that life that player lost this turn. If no life was lost this way, convert Blitzwing. On his vehicle side, he does read at the beginning of your combat on your turn, choose flying or indestructible at random. Blitzwing gains that ability until end of turn, and whenever he deals that combat damage to a player, convert it back to the front side. So I would say Blitzwing and Starscream really synergize very well with our commander when we want to deal damage. I thought I would also add Flame War, Brash Veteran, and Slicer Hired Muscle to the deck because they are Decepticons and might as well throw them in there. I would have put more Transformers in this deck, but I wanted to make sure it was truly Decepticons and that they all fit into Megatron's color theme. So that's why you don't see any Autobots in this list. So now to take a break from Transformers, I'm going to be talking about cards to sacrifice with Megatron's ability. I really wanted to make sure a lot of our artifacts have some really great death triggers. So I thought of a couple ones that make some tokens like Phyrexian Trinomorph, Wormcoil Engine, Triplicate Titan, and Ancient Stone Idol. I thought I would add these into the list because they will leave something after they are sacrificed. Plus they are heavy mana costs, but that's okay because Megatron will provide us a lot of mana to cast those heavy costed artifacts. Aside from our creatures making tokens, we do also have some really great die triggers for our artifacts as well. I added Scrap Trawler into the list because he'll provide a lot of great synergy to get artifacts back from the graveyard to our hand, because we're going to be sacrificing a lot of artifacts to deal that damage. damage. We do also have Scuttling Doom Engine, which is fantastic because when it dies, you could deal 6 damage to each opponent or planeswalker. I think this is quite a fantastic card in this deck because this could potentially get us 18 mana when it dies because of Megatron's ability. I also thought I would add Ruin Grinder. I really love this card. It kind of reminds me of the Golden Army kind of thing from Hellboy, but I do like it because whenever it dies, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. So essentially we'll get to wheel and also draw 7 cards to get a fresh new hand. So I really like this card in here as well. Speaking of great value, we do also have Ugin's Nexus. If we sacrifice it, we'll be able to get an extra turn on top of that, so might as well add that into the deck. So I think there's really a lot of great artifacts to sacrifice to Megatron so that we can keep on pumping that damage and then later on get that mana back. So if we do want to throw a lot of damage to our opponent and get a lot of mana, we want to make sure we have great consistency in doing so. So in order to gain that consistency, we have a lot of great goblins to give us ways to get our fat artifacts out. Cards like Duretti, Scrap Savant, Trash for Treasure, Scrap Wielder, and Goblin Engineer will get the job done for sure. I really like Duretti especially in here because he has a lot of really great abilities that will synergize with our artifacts being in the graveyard. If we have a little mana rock just sitting there doing nothing on the table, we might as well sacrifice it to get a big artifact creature or a big artifact on the battlefield so that we can do some serious damage. Speaking of graveyards and artifacts, I couldn't resist having the Necrons in this as well. Since there's crossovers running around everywhere, we might as well include these in the deck because these really synergize with Megatron. We have some great card synergies with Necron, Deathmark, Emotech, the Stormlord, Biotransference, Lichguard, and Cryptek. I definitely think Biotransference will probably be the all-star of the deck because creatures you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you lose 1 life and create 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token. So because of Biotransference, all our non-artifact permanents will be used at our disposal with Megatron's ability. I also do really like Cryptek because you may pay a 1 and a black and tap him. Choose another target artifact creature you control. When that creature dies this turn, return it to the battlefield tapped under your control. So this is just free real estate because we can continuously use this so that when we sacrifice our artifact creatures to Megatron, they'll just come back on the battlefield and we could use them over and over again. I really like Cryptek in this deck. So moving along to the next part of our video, we're going to be talking about Burn. Because of Megatron's ability at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, add colorless mana for each 1 life your opponent has lost this turn. So you don't actually have to worry about anything else. You could use burn spells to get that mana as well. The first card I actually thought about was actually another Warhammer card. We have Blood for the Blood God. What an absolutely insane card in this deck for many reasons. Don't worry about the spell reduction, but we do have discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile Blood for the Blood God. So if you do this before your combat phase with Megatron on the field, you'll get to draw 8 cards, and then in total you'll get 24 mana open and available for you after your post-combat phase because you'll deal 8 damage to each opponent. So I definitely call that a win-win right there. Getting both 8 cards in your hand, getting a fresh hand, and also getting 24 mana. What an absolute fantastic include in this deck. Also, speaking of great burn spells, we do have Chandra's Ignition, which could be a really great card in this deck because our commander will have 7 power in the field as long as he's on his robot side. So you'll definitely be able to board wipe a lot of creatures, if not all the creatures on the field. Plus, you'll deal 7 damage to each opponent, which will give you 21 colorless mana, which is absolutely incredible. And if you do also want to triple the damage, you might as well add Fiery Emancipation to all your burn spells. So I think this is great to include as well. Because of Megatron's ability of giving us so much colorless mana, I couldn't refuse adding in Eldrazi. I love Eldrazi so much, and I feel like they fit really well in this deck. Cards like Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, Kozilek, Great Distortion, Emrakul, the Promised End, Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, and Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger are honestly all fantastic includes in this deck. Why not just throw them in there because you're going to be getting so much colorless mana in the first place. I know they really don't count as artifact creatures in the first place, but I feel like I just had to include these in the deck. So if you're casting these pretty early on, you're definitely ahead of the game, but if you want to win the game, there are some great options as well. But I would say one of the best ways of winning is using an X spell like Torment of Hailfire. So for example, if you're using a card like Chandra's Ignition to deal 21 damage to everybody, you can use Megatron's ability to get 21 floating colorless mana to dump it into an X spell like Torment of Hailfire to win the game right there. I know it's not everyone's personal preference of choice on winning, but it is definitely a way to win the game if if you want to close out that way. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video. I think Megatron is a really powerful commander and one I might actually consider building myself. I know I say that about almost every commander that comes out, but I really love Megatron a lot. I think this is a really powerful commander. What's really cool about this card, it does remind me a little bit of Neheb with that life loss synergy. Also, it does remind me of Toralf, God of Fury with that backside. But let me know down below in the comments, what do you think of Megatron? Also, what are some cards that I missed that are really great with Megatron? Let me know down below in the comments. And again, thank you for stomping by.